I'm Christine Russo, and welcome to What Just Happened. Today, we welcome New York State Senator Jessica Scarcella-Spanton. Thank you for joining me, and congratulations on being voted the 2023 Staten Island Power 100. That's exciting.
Yes, that was very exciting. It's a weird thing, I'll tell you that. I never thought I really never intended to run for office. I've always been a staffer, so it's like a strange feeling, but it's good.
That's great. Well, let's talk about the bill. We're here to talk about the bill that you introduced and is in committee, and
Mhm.
it's about making it a felony if you assault, making a Class D felony if you
Mhm.
assault a retail worker. What's going on? What brought that about? Other than the obvious, what brought you to champion this in?
Of course. So, everybody has their deli that they go to, right? During my campaign, my deli is bagels, bread, and butter, more familiarly known to Staten Islanders as 3Bs on Forest Avenue. And during my campaign, I walked in, and one of the men who worked there had a black eye. He's an older gentleman. I asked what happened, and someone had broken in, robbed the deli, and they punched him in the face, which was devastating because these are just the nicest people. And these are people who work very non-traditional hours. So a lot of the delis and bodegas across New York City and across the state are open 24 hours, which is just a recipe for, dangerous people to come in the middle of the night who are up to no good. So I had met with a group called C.A.P.S, which is Collective Action to Protect Our Stores, is the acronym. I had met with them, and they had shared that this is a concern that's happening all across New York State. So we worked together to craft legislation to increase the penalty for assaulting a retail worker, which would make it a Class D felony, similar to the protections that firefighters get, utility workers, police officers. And this isn't actually reinventing the wheel. The legislature just added these protections for our bus drivers as well a couple of years ago. So I look at it as if you were deemed a frontline worker during the pandemic, you should have the same protections as all those other frontline workers.
I saw that pattern based on what else I saw was a Class D. And yes, you're absolutely right. It definitely, if you were exempt from staying home and you had to be in the workplace, then you should be protected. What
Yeah.
was the response when you started to, well, first of all, what's the process when you start to introduce a bill? And then how did you garner support?
Of course. So I think that naturally, because everybody in their own respective districts has these issues with their own stores, it's a very easy topic to talk about. Everybody has a story. Everybody, if you go to your local deli, everyone talks. You know each other really well. They see you at your worst. Rolling out of bed, getting your morning cup of coffee. So it's basically the process would be this: we introduce the bill, we send out an email to all of our colleagues asking them to sign on. It did garner support rather quickly in both houses, both in the Assembly and the Senate. It sits now in the Codes Committee. Sometimes there's concern about, how far, I guess, it can go, what constitutes an assault. So what I'm looking forward to doing this session is working with my colleagues who do have some of those concerns to get them to a place where they're comfortable. And I think just reminding people that these are folks who literally were deemed as frontline workers during the pandemic, and that this is not reinventing the wheel by creating a brand new crime. It's just putting them into the class of workers who already have these protections.
It seems like a big jump, though, to go from where we are, which is nothing slash nothing, kind of.
Yes.
Right? Am I wrong? Is it nothing?
No, it really, I mean, it's the repercussions are really, really light. And even, we there's a whole package of bills that we're working on to protect our retail workers. My bill addresses the assault. We have a bill that would make it's grand larceny in the fourth degree if you have multiple offenses of shoplifting. There's another bill, because what I don't think is talked about enough is that there's an organized element to some of the shoplifting that we're seeing, to actually create the crime of organized shoplifting as well. So, and then selling it, by the way, on Amazon or on these big online retail shops with no repercussions whatsoever. So it's kind of a multi-prong approach. And, I think sometimes as we legislate, we have to see what works, what doesn't work. And this is something that to me just is common sense. And it's not too far of a leap, like we did for the bus drivers who really deserve those protections, to make sure that they were in line with our cops, with our firefighters, and what workplace protection looks like.
I mean, all of those professions, there's a huge degree of vulnerability.
Yes.
They're fully accessible. It's 24/7.
Hmm.
There's a commonality there, as you mentioned. You're open first and then, defensive second.
Hmm.
You're not starting from a closed place. You're in an open, kind of accessibility. So it makes a lot of sense. So are you saying that behind this bill you have others coming, or they're all being worked on in a constellation form?
They're all being worked on. So the sponsor of the bill that would make it increase the penalties for multiple instances of shoplifting is my colleague Kevin Thomas, and also the other bill, which would target more of the online retails, is Senator Hoylman Siegel. So we're working in conjunction to kind of see these as a package that's really going to change how people view the workers and the importance of these retail stores.
Has there been any discussion to penalize the businesses that support stolen goods?
Yes. So, and I would definitely speak, and I would be happy to connect you with Senator Hoylman Siegel. That's basically what his bill would do, because right now there's really no ramification if you go online, you go on Amazon, there's you see deodorant for $1, whereas in the store it's $5, $6, $7. It's also the same reason why if you walk into a CVS, you see everything behind lock and key, because they've gotten so good at kind of swiping these items off the shelves. But then that actually also ties into the protections that my bill would do. So if you are working in a bigger store, let's say a ShopRite, a big grocery store, and you're unionized, you have a lot of workplace protections and that are set in stone. But if you're working in a deli and this is your family business, and the people behind the counter are the owner and his wife and maybe his son, taking from a local deli is a big deal. So they might have that interaction. Whereas the bigger stores will say, don't engage with someone shoplifting, we'll deal with it. There's cameras, things of that nature. But, those smaller stores, they're investing now. The store I spoke about earlier, 3Bs, they had security that they had to come hire in the evening hours. And what was really most egregious to me was the day that we were having a press conference on this bill. I had it naturally at this bagel store. And 5 o'clock in the morning that same day, right before our press conference, they were broken into again. And somebody came in wielding, I believe, a knife, threatening those workers. So this is something that they deal with on a constant basis. They were able to get an order of protection against that person, but the person can stand outside the deli. They have friends that go inside, and it's just a constant menacing feeling for those poor workers that, are there morning, noon, and night.
Right. Oh, that's really awful. And it adds to the expense of the operation. And for
Yes.
small businesses, the heart of the country, it becomes untenable. Are you familiar with Mayor Adams' program to combat organized retail crime last December? They did a study and they put, I don't know what you want to call it, a program in place.
Mhm.
What do you know about that?
I am familiar with it. And Mayor Adams has been a really great advocate and ally in supporting this package of bills and making sure that our small businesses are taken care of. But I have the statistics. I think I could pull them up in front of me. Yes. So they say that local stores lost an estimated $300 million in revenue due to theft. There was increasing repeat theft on the rise. So 327 offenders account for 30% of the New York City's 22,000 retail arrests in 2022. And recidivists were arrested nearly 6,000 times, averaging about 20 times each. So I think some of those stats are actually pulled from his study. A few other things: robbery, burglary, and crimes have increased more than 22%. And there's a lot of unresolved complaints, which I know Mayor Adams was very intent on addressing as well. So merchants have made 63,000 complaints most of them going unresolved. So I'm interested to see, what the city has done since that study came out. And I have a very good relationship with his office and his administration to see what those numbers look like today after they put some stuff in place. But I think our legislation will really fill the gaps. We work very closely with our district attorney here on Staten Island. So I talk to him probably on a weekly basis about what's happening in our community. So there is an element of people feel like they can get away with it, especially we have an issue with youth offenders. It's a big, big problem. People have this mindset like, I'm going to get away with this. There's not going to be a real repercussion. So I have to go to family court. So that's a piece of it. I really like the bill that Senator Thomas has in, because it's not the person who, they call them, crimes of desperation, right? Stealing a loaf of bread from the deli to feed their kids. This is when you have had multiple offenses, and we look at each of those shoplifting instances differently. So it's not the mom who's desperate and slips something under her jacket. It's the people who come in, they're menacing, they come in all the time. You saw the recidivism stat that 20% of those were reoffenders. So it's the people who constantly come back and they keep getting a slap on the wrist. And also just the organized nature of it, being able to steal in bulk and then go and make a huge profit online. That's something that I think is a major incentive too. So I think that just tackling every issue and making sure the people, who do steal the loaf of bread, they get services provided to them, and we don't treat them the same as someone who is stealing, $1,000 worth of goods from a CVS, which is why everything is under lock and key. I think there's nuance here as well. As far as my bill is concerned with the assault, my hope is that this will disincentivize people from coming in and becoming violent towards these workers. I look at it, I've been asked the question a lot, is this to add another crime that's bail eligible? And this would make the crime bail eligible, similar to assault on any of those workers I mentioned before. But to me, it's not about bail. It's about a workplace safety piece of legislation, and they deserve it. And I'm hoping that it incentivizes people to think twice before punching an old man in the face in the middle of the night or threatening somebody with a knife inside a deli. I hope that, there's some repercussion there, because there should be. So I'm hoping that that's what my bill will do. And I also think that the other bill by Senator Thomas, if you stole once, you get a warning, you steal twice, 3 times, now you're looking at something different. So I think it's really important to change the mindset and educate people. I would even be willing, and we have a very good relationship with all the small businesses, the Staten Island Economic Development Corporation here on Staten Island. We have a great relationship with them to partner with, these are New York's new laws. If you do this, this will be the round, and do like a PSA campaign. So they're on the wall of those delis, on the wall of those retail stores. So people maybe think twice, because it's also you have to do the education campaign. So, if you see that hanging on somebody's wall, maybe you think twice and walk away.
I think
Nothing will ever be perfect, but
right. Who reads a sign when they come in a deli, but when they're about to rob you? But you never know. You might catch that one person. Do you speak to retailers? Do they reach out to you, or are they aware of the bill? Should they be aware of the bill? And how are you entrenched in retail? And this will help raise the awareness, but what have you done so far?
Yeah, of course. So the organization C.A.P.S is really fantastic at making sure all the retail stores, they do like a massive outreach campaign. So they're all aware. I talk to small businesses in my district all the time on both sides of the bridge, and I let them know this is something that we're trying to do. It's really, really important that you voice your support. We want to get as many people as we can supporting this. And what I really is great about C.A.P.S is that they're talking to people outside of my district. So they're going across, especially New York City and all of New York State, encouraging their local businesses to reach out to their elected officials to support the bill as well, which is a key piece, because I think people, we're creatures of responding to our constituency as elected officials. So hearing directly from your constituents that this has been an issue is a key piece in making sure that this garners enough support to get over the finish line. And I do believe that if we're able to pass it in the Assembly and the Senate, I do believe this is something that the governor would be supportive of. It's just, there's a lot of bills out there. So you have to make a lot of noise to make sure it gets done.
Right. Well, this will make noise. And what should I link? Your website or what?
Certainly.
Your page,
Yeah, you can link my Senate website, and then my little social media is at my Senator JSS. Daughter goes, don't go making bills that tell kids that they can't like use their iPad or something. So I joke with her all the time. I was like, you better watch it.
I can't thank you enough.
So nice to meet you, and thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks,
All right.
Jessica.
Perfect. Nice to meet you.
Bye. Bye. I'm Christine Russo, and you're listening to What Just Happened. We'd like to thank our guest, New York State Senator Jessica Scarcella-Spanton. Jessica Scarcella-Spanton.